The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. This is Devin Grant. I'm the Director of the Governor's Cabinet and Advisory Committee for People with Disabilities, and also the co-lead for Pennsylvania under our Employment First State Leadership Mentoring Program efforts. Today we're having a webinar on the best practices in rural areas. It's part 2 of our 3-part series on that topic. And our presenter today is Dwayne Webb, who will share what he's doing with there on the ground in Martin, Tennessee. Before we get started, I wanted to mention a couple things. If you're not listening on your telephone and you have some audio issues, you may want to switch to the telephone. For some reason, that usually works better than the computer speakers. So if you are having trouble hearing, try that. We're also going to have time for questions at the end, and you should see a chat box there on your screen. If you have questions, please feel free to type those in, and we'll run those by Dwayne at the end. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Dwayne. Thanks, Dwayne.
Thank you, Devin. Good afternoon and welcome to the second installment in the 3-part webinar series focused on best practices in rural areas, also known as the Martin, Tennessee Experience. My name is Dwayne Webb, and it's truly an honor to be here today and to be able to share with you the success story of our recent transformation process as we've shifted service delivery models away from the traditional shelter workshops and day habilitation programs into what is now 100% community integrated services that are focused on employment and community participation. I'd like to share with you a little bit more information about myself and the current roles that I operate out of. I serve as the Director for Day and Employment Services at St. John's Community Services in Martin, Tennessee. In addition to my primary role with St. John's, I also serve as the current Vice President for our Tennessee APSE chapter, having just completed my term as Board Chair for the chapter back in January. I'm also a member of Governor Bill Haslam's Employment First Task Force and work with ODEP in a consulting role when needed as an SME. In total, I have over 22 years of experience in the human service field in multiple facets of a DIDD provider agency. Throughout the presentation today, I'll be providing you with a firsthand account of the steps we took during our own transformation process. You'll learn a lot about how St. John's operates from a value, mission, and service delivery perspective as it pertains to the objectives stated here. Now, that's not to say that this is the golden rule for everybody to operate by. Each of you will have to figure that part out on your own. This is, however, a true success story to what worked for our company in the rural settings that which we operate out of. It is also my intent that you'll be able to take away specific tactics from this presentation that will hopefully assist you in your own conversion process. It's also my hopes that when you leave here today, you're going to leave here knowing that you're not alone in your struggles, that other states have and are overcoming similar hurdles, and that the changes you decide to make today will vastly impact the future of tomorrow. To begin the presentation, I'd like to take a moment to provide a very brief overview of our organization. Since its historic founding in 1868, St. John's community-based activist approach has assisted people to fully participate in and become contributors to their chosen communities. Our mission reflects a commitment to advancing self-direction, full citizenship, and equal rights for people with disabilities. We currently provide a wide array of services for over 600 individuals in the form of employment, community participation, and community living services in our Washington, D.C., Virginia, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Delaware, and Maryland locations. Our strong support base of 816 full and part-time employees allows St. John's to carry out our mission of advancing community support and opportunities for people living with disabilities. For those of you who may not be very familiar with our wonderful state, here's a layout by county. We have a total of 95 counties within the state of Tennessee. In addition to the county listing, you will see a color pattern indicating the most current unemployment data for our state. Those counties in blue doing quite well for themselves. The ones in red, not so much. We've seen as many as 4 of our 6 operating counties in red at one point in time. And the reason I share that with you is to help kind of paint a picture of what is available from an employment and community participation standpoint in our rural area setting. Luckily, at the moment, we only have one county operating in the red, so I'm not complaining at all about that point. To put this information in perspective compared to what's going on a national average, our overall state unemployment rate currently sits at 3.4% for the month of March in Tennessee, while the national average comes in at 4.1%. So overall, we're doing pretty decent as a state in general. So now that we've kind of gotten your history and geography lesson out of the way, well, at least for the most part, I'd like to drill down a little bit further and do the same regarding where our office is located in Tennessee and how all this came to be, because it's going to be the basis for our transformation story as we move forward with the presentation. So with that, welcome to Martin, Tennessee. From our Martin, Tennessee office, we currently operate the surrounding counties of Lake, Obion, and Weakley County. When we originally began our transformation process, we also operated the counties of Henry and Carroll. As we moved forward in our efforts, we established pilot programs in these areas and eventually broke those counties away from our operating jurisdiction. To put that in a more logistical layout, here's a breakdown of West Tennessee. St. Johns Martin currently operates the top portion of the map. I've also provided you with a little further information regarding populations, median household income, and poverty rates for you to do a comparison as it relates to your own respective areas of operation. So how did the transformation process begin? Well, that all started back on July 1st, 2012, when St. John's Community Services assumed operations from a financially failing provider agency that had been in business for the past 41 years. The primary cause of the agency's closure was that the service models being delivered in the form of a sheltered workshop and facility-based center were just not covering the cost of operations any longer. This, coupled with rate cuts in state funding and some unexpected expenses, eventually took a toll on the agency's rainy day fund. We struggled to find viable options, made cuts wherever possible, but the end result, we were just too far gone to dig ourselves out of the financial hole we were in. So with that, our agency reached out to the Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities to inform them that we could no longer sustain operations. Our company went up on the auction block and numerous providers looked at assuming our operations, but in the end, it was St. John's that stepped to the forefront, becoming our new controlling entity. Now, you can imagine the apprehensiveness felt throughout our company regarding someone new assuming the reins from our longstanding organization, which had always been known to provide quality care and services to the individuals and families we served. That concern was heightened even more when it was discovered that everything we'd ever known regarding service delivery models was about to change, because St. John's did not believe in operating any facility-based services. So obviously, being that we were on opposite ends of the spectrum regarding how services should be provided, we had to come up with a game plan on how to make this transformation a reality. We approached our organizational transformation by following the Program Without Walls operational philosophy established by St. John's back in 1989, which focused on 6 key elements that were crucial in ensuring we were ready for true systems transformation at all levels necessary to be successful, and by implementing the Employment First initiatives that were being developed in Tennessee. Now, as far as that wise old man who once said the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, it's obviously clear he never actually had to deal with provider transformation. If he had, he may have coined the phrase, "You have to learn to crawl before you can walk." This is especially true when you have to strip everything down and start at ground zero like we had to do. But regardless of where you are with your current transformation process, these above mentioned steps will be crucial in ensuring you are ready for the journey. But before we look at these steps on a closer level, if any of you out there are still having a hard time wrapping your head around the whole organizational transformation process, I would recommend you take a look at this TED Talks video to really help you figure out the why, how, and what aspects to what you're trying to accomplish. The How Great Leaders Inspire Action video by Simon Sinek has been around for a little while, and you may have already seen it, but if you have not, I would encourage you to add it to your toolkit as you start to shift the conversation about transformation. The video itself is about 18 minutes long, but really worth the watch. I've included the link to the video in the resource section of this presentation for your viewing pleasure, if you so desire to take a look at it. So with that, let's get started. Step 1, gather the information and establish your identity. Based on St. John's program Without Walls operational philosophy, we began reestablishing what our cultural identity would be as we move forward under the new company. You see, St. John's truly believes in operating 100% in the community and providing real-world settings for people to learn and grow. Many years ago, they decided as an agency that separating people from their communities would not help them prepare for a full and meaningful adult life. So they sold off all their buildings, reinvested that revenue back into the areas that needed to be strengthened within the new employment and community service models, and moved out into the community to provide services. Staff and community participation in employment programs would now meet individuals at predetermined locations in the community and carry out full schedules of daily activities focused on person-centered choices. From that point forward, the individuals never went back to a facility to be segregated from society ever again. If you think about that for a moment, it's a very simple principle. We've all learned from our peers and our environment as we have grown throughout the years. If we separate the individuals from their peers, they don't have the appropriate role models from which to learn. In addition, most, if not all of us, learn better by doing a task in a real-world setting rather than through a simulated one like a classroom. These experiences have contributed to the career paths and life choices we have made for ourselves. The most important concept to remember from all this is that all people, regardless of disability, have a right to be in their community, and our role as a provider agency is simply to support them. Therefore, St. John's moved away from the bricks and mortar models of service delivery. St. John's realized they would rather spend the resources they had individualizing services for people, which often means more staff to individual ratios, than invest into facilities. Sometimes when you have buildings and a mortgage to pay, it can force you to make decisions based on maintaining those buildings rather than what is in the best interest of the individuals you serve. So as you can see, our little world in Martin, Tennessee was about to get flipped upside down, and a whole lot of change was heading our way with the new company's mindset of operation. The second step, and to me the most important part of the transformation process, is establishing the core values of the organization that will be the driving force behind your mission and every other aspect of how you deliver services. Too many times an organization's core values are worth no more than the paper they're written on. They're just words. In order to be successful with organizational change, you must have buy-in from the very top of the food chain right down to the newest employee walking in the door. If you truly don't believe in what you're trying to do, then how can you expect to change anything? Everything that we do as an organization at St. John's is based off of our core values. We believe that everyone should have a career, have dreams for the future, and make meaningful contributions. At St. John's, employability is expected and assumed. We believe that individuals with disabilities should have the same standards, responsibilities, and expectations as any working-age adult. Therefore, employment is always the first and preferred option we offer to individuals that we serve. It's not something that a person has to earn the right to do. Rather, it's expected that a person will want this outcome just as non-disabled individuals do, because it brings with it economic security, self-esteem, and status in the community. This means thoroughly educating people to the benefits gained from work and encouraging the pursuit of this preferred outcome while still respecting the individual's informed choice. We hope that every individual will choose paid employment as their first and preferred outcome, but even if a person isn't going to participate in formal work within a competitive or customized employment environment, everyone can have a career, even if it's one of volunteerism or other community contribution. We also hold true to the belief that everyone should be included, respected, and valued. This means being a part of things and having your opinion matter and being treated respectfully at all times. That people should have ongoing information, experiences, and expectations from which then and only then allows them to truly be able to make informed choices that will directly impact how their life and career goals will be developed. We have a training module here that we use with new hires that talks about choice. If all you've ever known is chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla ice cream, yeah, you've got a choice, but it's a limited choice between those three things. But if I take you on a field trip over to Baskin-Robbins, home of 31 wonderful flavors, I just blew your mind because you didn't know all that was out there. So now you're able to truly make an informed choice from multiple different areas. That people need to and should have a wide array of relationships to successfully learn from and grow from. Through work and being involved in one's community, we feel is the best way to establish those relationships. And lastly, to live and participate in the community of his or her own choice, which again is drastically impacted through the financial security gained through work. These core values that I just mentioned are what our staff keep in mind when supporting individuals in employment and community participation services. The next step is creating the plan. How will you develop your services to meet the benchmarks established in your mission and core value statements? And what benefits do these measures bring to everyone involved? This is where the rubber really starts to meet the road. It's time to start rolling out the new service models to the individuals, the families, and to the staff. You have to be able to sell the why aspect to all your stakeholders. You also have to determine if you can actually deliver on and financially sustain what you are proposing. St. John's determined that our community services would be formatted around the following measures. All activities would be conducted 100% in the community. No St. John's facilities are operated that would separate people with disabilities from their communities. Staff would accompany individuals to pre-planned activities in the community, conduct skill training, no van therapy. Staff to individual ratios would be no greater than 1 to 3. Activities would be chosen by the individuals and reflective of their interests and choices. And activities would be close to the individual's home community, thus no more long commutes on vans. Prior to making our transformation, we were busing individuals into our centralized location here in Martin from the surrounding counties. Some of these van routes alone were over 2.5 hours one way. Now you think about that as 4 to 5 hours a day riding a van to get 6 hours of service. It's not really a good way to operate. In order to meet these measures, we had to come to terms with the necessary strategies to be used to fund these transportation expenses and learn how to maximize our resources, because vehicles can and will be a major obstacle and expense to you providing rural-based services. We simply do not have the built-in luxury of calling up Uber or Lyft in our neck of the woods. However, what we did have at the time St. John's took over operations was a fairly large fleet of approximately 35 vehicles. This provided us with an initial framework to begin delivering services in the community. To further assist in our transportation needs, we utilized available grants from the Tennessee Department of Transportation to acquire vehicles at a favorably discounted price. We could get a $40,000, $50,000 vehicle, for $4,000 or $5,000. So that's, pretty good cost savings there. We also examined how we could break funding with our residential departments to lease vehicles from Enterprise Fleet Management to further support our community-based service efforts. We also made it clear that when vehicles were limited or down on maintenance, the staff would need to utilize their personal vehicles to be reimbursed then at the state mileage rate. We also looked at outside resources that could offset the expense and logistics of providing community-based services. When you cover a larger rural area, you can sometimes find yourself spread too thin in getting individuals back and forth to work. In Tennessee, we have job access grants that can assist with getting people from point A to point B. And being that this is a federal regulation, you too may have something very similar in your area. For us, this is provided by Northwest Tennessee Human Resource Agency, and it's part of the JARC program. Northwest Tennessee Human Resource Agency plays a key role in our employment services. We operate a small but stout employment program with 5 dedicated employees. Without the services we receive from the JARC program, employment in our area would be non-existent for the numbers of individuals that we serve. We would simply be reduced to running up and down the roads instead of providing job supports to the individuals. Some other options out there to overcome the barriers to transportation is through various grants. My Ride is an example of that. It is based off volunteers who commit their time and vehicle to transport people to various locations around the community. So in essence, it's similar to Uber and Lyft without the expense to the individuals, although it's limited in the overall scope of services it has to offer. Grants can also provide you with money to purchase vehicles outright or to help you offset the general expense of vehicle operations. You just have to comb through the weeds and find what grant works best for your operations. Additionally, to offset transportation funding and logistics, we try to include buy-in from the families regarding the importance of getting individuals to and from work during weekdays and weekends. We've developed an understanding of the funding streams of our vocational rehabilitation services, as well as establishing natural supports along the way. And, when all else fails for us here, we kind of resort back to an old reliable source in Tennessee called Jack Transportation. Some of you may have heard of it or even seen it in use. He can be a little stubborn at times, but overall he's pretty reliable. But with all kidding aside, these are the things that you really have to do your due diligence on and plan for in advance. because no margin means no mission, period. I don't care how good of a plan you have created, it will mean absolutely nothing if you cannot maintain a workable margin to carry out your operations. This will require you to take a hard look at every aspect of your organization to financially support the transformation process. It will require you to analyze business trends, external opportunities, internal resources, and core competencies to maximize every resource at your disposal. One of the biggest and most impactful resources you have at your disposal is your staff. At the onset of transforming our services, St. John's evaluated the personnel it had acquired. They strategically repositioned personnel into key management roles, modifying their previous job descriptions to meet the core competencies of the organization. They then mentored, empowered, and held accountable those personnel to meet the financial demands necessary to carry out system changes. We met weekly or bi-weekly to discuss relevant issues and to report on each department's current situation as it pertained to internal matters of control in order to operate more effectively and efficiently in the new service environment. Other key factors when it comes to maintaining your margin may pertain to how you braid your services to maximize funding and how you look into potential opportunities in untapped revenue pockets as they line up with your operational mindset and strengths. The primary funding stream we used during our transformation process came from the incentives that our own DIDD rate system provided regarding service delivery. Employment and community participation services offered the largest financial benefit when compared to segregated environments like our sheltered workshop and rehabilitation centers. Community-based service rates for individuals with levels 1 through 4 ranged from $63.82 a day to $88.84 a day when compared to facility-based service rates for those same levels that ranged from $31.55 a day to $67.13 a day. The biggest incentives that we saw came with individual employment rates, which came in at $83.24 per day, up to $116.15 per day for special need placements, in comparison to the segregated group rate, which came in at only $47.63 for that day. Additionally, we could also demonstrate more cost effectiveness by lowering our staff costs through the reduction of supervision required for the more employment placements. We also generated revenue through our letter of agreement with Tennessee Voc Rehab when we provided employment supports that met certain milestone benchmarks. We assessed local county grant funding streams. We grew our fundraising efforts. We looked at selling off buildings utilized for facility-based residential services and obtained outside grants to provide specific training opportunities which targeted staff development in organizational core competencies and job development. So once we kind of established a viable game plan and a workable margin, we focused on the outcomes of the new services being offered and strongly felt that the benefits gained from this new format of service delivery would meet every aspect of the core values that we wanted for the individuals. It allowed for connections with the community, for relationships and social outlets. It provided the opportunity to explore different types of community resources, to build skills and develop a strong resume for future work. It gave individuals the chance to contribute to the community and build confidence, a sense of self-worth, and shared responsibility within the community. And it allowed for greater independence and interdependent relationships through the development of community access skills and cultural interests. As we started to move the individuals out into the community and truly begin to provide them with the opportunities to grow and develop, they were bombarded with real-life experiences and newfound information, which then led to higher expectations of what they wanted for a full and meaningful day of services, as well as future goals and aspirations in regards to their career. This, in turn, led to a deeper look into exploration and discovery, which we used to develop the skill sets that we ultimately translated into successful job placements. One of the early selling points for me was after we'd been out in the community for a few short weeks, I got to witness the impact the changes were having on the individuals directly. As I was standing in the doorway of an office speaking to one of our day team leaders, one of the individuals literally knocked me out of the doorway to share what her experience had been for that day out in the community. She was smiling ear to ear, clapping, and stated, "I had a good day today. What do I get to do tomorrow?" Now, that same individual had been coming to our day program for years, and I had not once seen that much excitement on her face. We had found something that day that she truly enjoyed, and she wanted more of it. I realized then at that moment it was time for a much-needed change in how we provided services to the individuals in our care. The new service delivery models were also having a major impact on the community as a whole as well, because it brought forth the opportunities to now bridge the gaps that had previously been created from the segregated facility-based services. The community was now getting to know individuals with disabilities, often as a first-time experience for many community members. It increased the pools of available people from nonprofits who depended on volunteers and businesses looking for skilled labor. It provided an opportunity for communities to see people with disabilities as contributors rather than often needing contributions. And it provided a chance for new generations to grow up with people with disabilities, thereby increasing acceptance and understanding of diversification. One of the biggest things that we learned was how much of a demand there was for volunteers in our local communities, and that we can make a huge impact and difference for others, as well as change the mindset and overall perception of the community as it pertains to the disability field. Now, obviously, not everyone was excited to hear about these new changes. It came with a lot of pushback from the staff, the families, and the community at large, and that was to be expected. You know, change is a powerful tool that can either work for you or against you. We all have the power to change how we approach every aspect of our lives. That ability gives us the direction, the determination, and the voice to achieve the goals and dreams we've set for ourselves. But too many times we allow that same power to hold us back and to be a barrier to those goals and dreams, simply because it pushes us outside of our comfort zone. Our comfort zone makes us feel safe, but in reality it prevents us from growing or experiencing anything new, thus limiting our abilities and leaving us to wonder what might have been. And that's where we were at with many of our stakeholders. We are all creatures of habit. We like our routines and comfort zones to remain in check, and people were just simply having a hard time changing their mindset away from this has worked just fine for the past 41 years, while all of a sudden we have to change everything. As a direct result, this barrier opened up the floodgates to 1,000,001 reasons why people felt the new employment and community service models wouldn't work, which in turn left us to figure out how to overcome this obstacle. We knew we had to address each person's concern on an individualized basis, but also understood that we had to maintain the firm commitment that we were going to make this work and that we were not going to back away from our mission, nor would we alter our core values. This is where we started to lean on the technical assistance being offered by our state's newly implemented Employment First initiatives. With the 2013 signing of Executive Order Number 28, Governor Bill Haslam put into motion some key elements that would prove to be vital components to our success. Under Executive Order 28, the Employment First Task Force was convened, and St. John's was invited to participate as a member. This put us at the table with representatives across multiple facets of the intellectual and developmental disabilities field. The order gave us direct insight in identifying best practice techniques that would assist us in our transformation process. It established effective partnerships within the state as well as with ODEP SMEs. It provided insight into sources of available federal funds that we had not previously known about or tapped into. And lastly, it provided us with specific training on disability employment in order to raise awareness of effective strategies in obtaining employment outcomes. That same year, St. John's also accepted an invitation to be part of the Employment First State Leadership Mentoring Program, EFSLMP for short, by joining a group of fellow providers who were selected to share feedback regarding waiver re-engineering, rate restructuring, and other vital components as they pertain to our Tennessee waiver system. We later went on to obtain a seat on Tennessee ABSI Board of Directors and joined the EFSLMP grant in its full capacity in 2015. This is where the rubber really started meeting the road as we moved forward with our organizational assessment conducted by SME Nancy Gurney. The information we obtained from Ms. Gurney's assessment and the ongoing technical support she provided afterwards proved to be the missing link we were looking for to help us completely move through the remaining barriers we were still facing concerning our organization's transformation. We worked with our SME to assist our efforts in gathering key data points from those who were still unwilling to buy into the new system of operation. It's hard to fix a problem if you don't know what the issues are. So we came to the table with anyone who wanted to talk about the changes in services. We did this with one-to-one conversations, group discussions, phone calls. It didn't matter. We were here 24/7 and available. We gave people the opportunity, to open up and have honest communication in hopes it would allow them the chance, to express what their hesitations were, and in turn allow us the opportunity to work through each of those in a manner that we would be able to reassure that everyone services would move forward and have a positive impact on those being served. For many of our family members, it simply came down to painting a clearer picture of what true community integration would look like. For those families, we offered opportunities to take tours of the new programs, provide them with contact information with other families who are on board with the new services to share feedback, and allow the individuals themselves to engage in trial program experiences to show what would change and what would not change with the new employment and wraparound services of community participation. This allowed the individuals the opportunity to be informed and make choices about their services and share that decision with their respected family. We also sought feedback from the community and the stakeholders on a regular basis to measure the levels of satisfaction in efforts to correct any areas of concern before they manifested into bigger obstacles. By maintaining ongoing contact, we further established a true sense of trust, letting staff, families, and individuals know we as an organization were in this together. From the staff perspective, we had to work past some competency concerns and simply push people outside that comfort zone. When we first brought forth the notion of transforming our service delivery systems, it was met with immediate pushback. Staff brought forth every reason possible why this wouldn't work. We basically had to analyze the concerns in the minds of each of our employees on a one-to-one basis. In the end, we were able to get down to the real root of their fears by answering one simple question, and it truly is a simple question. It comes back down to, how does this affect me? The question itself may be simple, but the answers were far more complex. So how did we achieve this? We conducted ongoing training and sought outside professional development with our employees to strengthen their skill sets. One specific benefit to achieving this came in the form of a provider scholarship we received to attend a workshop to workplace conference sponsored by APSI, Regional Institute. As a result, we were able to elect 2 young men that were our most tenured workshop employees of some 20-something years, and select them to go to this conference to provide them with firsthand knowledge of what was occurring across the nation, in hopes they would bring back that knowledge and disseminate it to other support professionals in the field. These 2 young men did just that. They returned empowered and equipped with the tools and knowledge necessary to ease the fears in the minds of other staff members, as well as some families. They even went on to be featured employees represented in our Out of the Workshop video that was filmed in partnership with the state of Tennessee. That video I'm going to share with you a little bit later in the presentation. And lastly, the pushback that we experienced from the community at large primarily came from our long-standing contract vendors, as we attempted to bring the subcontract employment work outside of the shop and into the employer's place of business. At the time we entered into the EFS-LMP grant, we had 9 contracts that were being covered out of our sheltered workshop facility, 3 large factories that were outsourcing contract work to our facility-based program directly, and 6 enclave mobile work crew locations out in the community. We utilized the technical assistance provided from our SME devised strategies in order to approach each vendor specifically to discuss the pending changes in service models and what that would mean to our longstanding working relationships with these businesses. We analyzed the available workforce that could be successful in each pending employment site and worked diligently with each company in efforts to have the individuals hired directly. We provided the vendors with a tax incentive, that were readily available out there, concrete numbers from time studies that showed that if an individual could meet the production in a sheltered facility, then they could do the same at that business establishment, and a line in the sand 60-day notice of our intentions to end piecework rates. During the negotiation process, we learned firsthand what value a few vendors placed on work being performed by the individuals. As long as it was being produced on a piecework, pennies per parts aspect, they were good with it. But when it came time to hire the individuals directly, they walked away. Businesses who we had worked with for 25 years or more were now turning their backs on the individuals. Qualified employees who could do the work at a competitive or customized employment level were being bypassed for real job opportunities to move the contract to the next sheltered facility that held a sub-minimum wage certification. As disappointing as that was, it was okay. If those businesses could not see the value of the workforce available to them to meet their production demands, it was their loss. One business in particular that did see the value was Elgin Fasteners, headquartered out of Ohio. They operated a plant here in the Martin area that we had done work with for over 22 years. At the time we entered into discussions with Elgin, There were 3 other businesses producing contract work for them in our area. We met with one of Elgin's corporate officials out of Ohio and was one of the local businesses that was also producing contract work for the company to form a partnership. After about a month of negotiations, we were able to come to an agreement with Elgin Fasteners and EPAC out of Union City, Tennessee. This agreement created 5 jobs directly for the individuals, 3 of which were on a full-time basis, with the other 2 positions being part-time. The partnership moved a long-standing piecework rate contract out of our sheltered workshop facility and established competitive jobs for individuals at or above minimum wage. Through this, we also increased the volume of work for EPAC as we shifted our inventory directly to them and now gave them the responsibility for producing 1.1 million units per month for Elgin Fasteners to later be used in Briggs & Stratton engines. One young man's success story that came from this directly was Gerald. The contract you see Gerald working on is from Elgin Fasteners that I referenced just a little bit ago. The contract itself was one that Gerald had specific skills to master and do so at a competitive level. It was also a contract that Gerald thoroughly enjoyed working on, so it was a perfect match for all parties involved when we shifted the contract out of the sheltered workshop and into EPAC. The biggest difference, in addition to earning higher wages, was how the contract setting changed the outlook of Gerald as he made the transition to competitive employment. Gerald left our sheltered workshop in June of 2016 to begin working at EPAC on a full-time basis. Gerald's job coach has been impressed with his changes that he's seen. Gerald's attendance has been spot on, where before at the workshop it was very sporadic. His overall attitude has remarkably improved. Gerald now socializes with co-workers often, and the job coach believes Gerald feels that he has a real place and a real purpose now. You see, Gerald lives independently and depends on his work income to pay his bills. When you talk to Gerald now about working at EPAC, he will tell you he's made new friends, he's worked on some new things, and been able to buy some things he couldn't buy before because he just simply didn't have the money. He has now been able to put money into a savings account for emergencies, for times he doesn't work, and even maybe one day take a trip. But most of all, he will tell you that he's glad that he is able to stay independent. If you would like to read Gerald's story in its full entirety, you can find that in the resource section of your handout. It's imperative that you understand that communication is going to be at the very heart of your transformation process from day one. And how you choose to go about it will be crucial in how successful you are and also how many additional hurdles you create for yourself. The best advice I can give you is to have open and honest communication with all involved. This was established day one by our new leadership team. They brought forth a message that was reassuring and confident in nature, and it was disseminated to all of our stakeholders as well as the community to reassure everyone that this change in services would work and drastically improve the lives of those we served. The results you obtain in your own conversion process will stem directly from your communication delivery. As indicated in this slide, it can have detrimental effects if done poorly. So what were some of the lessons we took away regarding overcoming the resistance to our organizational transformation and ensuring the services were implemented and carried out to the standards we had set? We learned right off the bat that change was continuous and that you had to be able to adapt to survive. That by empowering your employees to be creative in looking for opportunities that match the interests, skills, and abilities of the individuals, you were able to build a sense of ownership, which then led to complete buy-in. That laying a solid foundation would be the key to building a successful program. That by raising the bar of expectation, you brought about higher work standards. That you most definitely had to have a backbone and remain firm and committed when faced with adversity, and you're going to be faced with a lot of adversity. And lastly, you had to remember to remain positive. You had to understand that this process was a marathon and not a sprint, and that along the way that you're going to need some help to achieve your goals. We gained so much valuable information from our partnership with the EFSLMP grant and our SMEs over the course of our journey. The more channels of communication you have in place, the better served you are for whatever comes your way when you're trying to accomplish your goals. So what was our timeline to achieve these measures? We began the journey with 103 individuals on July 1st, 2012 in our Martin, Tennessee office. We immediately entered into the budget season and began planning for the transformation of services in stages. We focused on training, reallocating current resources, and establishing community recreation and nonprofit volunteer sites to begin real-world skill training. We slowly began moving services out into the community and worked on problems as they developed. The early issues came primarily from the staff not having that security net of a building and the additional staff on hand to assist with the individuals. The individuals were just the opposite. We started to see their demeanor change as the new community-based programs evolved. The individuals were forming connections with the community for relationships and social outlets. They were given opportunities to explore different types of community resources, to build skills, and develop a strong resume for future work options. They finally had that chance to truly contribute to their community and build their confidence, a sense of self-worth, and shared responsibility with other community members. In 2014, we began to pick up momentum as we started to build our resources and skill capacity. We rolled out our first pilot program that was 100% employment and community-based, thus transitioning individuals back to their home communities for services and supports. This is where we broke out those two counties away from our Martin, Tennessee jurisdiction and made them self-sustaining entities. In August 2015, we closed and transitioned services away from the Day Habilitation Center, further making our imprint known in the community, as 33 more individuals entered into employment and/or community participation services. From 2014 to 2016, we continued to remove individuals from the sheltered workshop as we established more pilot programs focused on employment and wraparound services in 100% community integrated settings. We set a firm target date to close the sheltered workshop. We notified all stakeholders to their options and provided piecework contract vendors a 60-day notice of us ending subcontract work. Now, going back to the point where this process of transformation is a marathon and not a sprint, I can't stress to you enough the importance of doing your due diligence as you plan each phase of your conversion. True organizational transformation is not something you do overnight. It takes time. If you rush through this process of these 6 steps, you're going to do a disservice to the individuals you serve as well as your organization. As you can see, even with us having a game plan already established, it took our St. John's Martin location over 4 years to completely convert our services. It may have taken us a little time to complete, but in the end, we built a foundation that we could expand on for many, many, many more years to come. We finally crossed the finish line and completed our journey on July 1st, 2016, when we shut the doors to our sheltered workshop facility and fully shifted services to 100% integrated employment and community supports. Now, this was a 31-year operating workshop that we closed down. We've been able to build and maintain a successful employment program that currently consists of 47 individuals working in the community. So how have we been able to do this with so many people out of work in our area? Remember, 4 of our 6 service counties ranked the highest in Tennessee for unemployment just a short while back, coupled with the fact that we have a university in our backyard with an additional 6,700 students enrolled competing for work. Our strategies are by no means complex in nature, but they have been effective for our area. So here's just a few quick tips. We've been able to build a strong presence in the workplace primarily by how we market and deliver our employment services. One good thing about being in a rural environment is that you can really capitalize on your networking connections. That is, if you provide good services. In small towns, it's easier to get to that next potential employer because everybody knows who the key players are in the community. But getting your foot in the door means absolutely nothing if you're not able to effectively communicate the services you have to offer and do so in a manner that grabs the attention of the prospective employer right off the bat. Time's money. We've heard that saying repeatedly. And you have only one shot at convincing this person across the table that they need what you're selling. To do this effectively, you have to know who you are dealing with. What are that business's strengths and weaknesses? Use those to your advantage by showcasing that one person who will add value to the workforce and ultimately to their bottom line. One person, one job mentality is our motto here at St. John's. One of the key tools we utilize for this is our positive personal profile. It's an internal tool that we developed to kind of, streamline and spotlight the true interest and desires of what an individual wants in a working career. This internal document allows our job developers to structure employment specifically around the career goals of the individual and find that job match that is uniquely their own. You also have to hire and train the right people to carry out your services. You're going to need a lot more staff as you start to make this transformation. That's what your customers are out there doing. They're out there looking for that employee who brings upside to the company, and so should you. Staff development, utilizing competency-based training programs, and best practice techniques are important assets to have in your job tool developer's toolkit, but truly, if you don't know how to use them, they're pointless to have. You must also educate your job developers to be proficient along the lines of Social Security, or have a benefits counselor in your back pocket when employment opportunities are being sought or obtained. This is often one of the biggest hurdles to get past, especially in the family hierarchy. This is especially true in rural areas where you have seemingly higher unemployment rates compared to the national averages. You have to be able to show individuals and families the benefits to employment. Increased earnings are not always perceived as a good thing and can tie your hands rather quickly, especially if you have someone that's relied on the system for survival for many, many years. Transportation, as we mentioned earlier, is a huge barrier to individual employment in rural areas. We work to find opportunities in the areas in which the individuals live and have the most supports in place. Maybe a job is established within walking distance of the person's home, or family and natural supports are established in advance to assist in transport when public transportation options are simply not available. You also need to understand and be able to show employers the tax benefits to be had from hiring individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It may be that final component that seals the deal, but again, you have to be skilled in your delivery and know how to assist that business at all levels for that to be successful. And lastly, the biggest thing I can recommend is to remain vigilant to ensure the employer and employee relationship remains at a very high level of satisfaction. Be there to assist with any issues that may arise. Now for my favorite part of the transformation process. This is where I get to share some of the stories and accomplishments of the individuals and the partnerships we've made along the way. The next few slides I'm going to show are just a few of the success stories from some of the individuals who left our shelter programs and are now successfully working and participating in their chosen communities. As you will see from the various slides, the individuals have found success in career paths focused on their individual expressed interest. Our one person, one job philosophy is always at the core of our employment services. This commitment ensures that people supported are not fitted into jobs that may be available at our convenience, rather that they are of their expressed preferences. This part of the transformation process is also vitally important to keeping your momentum moving in the right direction. By showcasing and celebrating these events as they occur, you're able to further build buy-in from the families, the individuals, and the staff. This is also where you can take a brief moment to catch your breath and reflect on everyone's hard work and dedication to the struggles you've had to overcome as an organization. But don't allow yourself to get too comfortable because there's still much work to be done in order to build a successful program. During our transformation process, we've been able to document our journey in part through a series of Employment First vignettes. The Way to Work videos are part of a marketing campaign by the Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities that allows providers the opportunities to showcase the success stories of the individuals across the state of Tennessee. We've had the privilege of working with DID's Public Information Officer, Matthew Perriott, for 6 such videos, one of which became public on April 18, 2017. To date, this single video has had more than 87,000 views on Facebook, and it's reached well over 135,000 plus people as a whole on social media. Now, you want to talk about a powerful marketing tool and message to further expand employment in our state and on a national scale? There you have it. It's kind of hard to argue with those results. You get to hear from the individuals, their employers, their co-workers, what it means to be employed on a competitive or customized level. Individuals who have spent 20 to 30 years in facility-based programs that are now able to speak to the friendships they formed in the community and to the opportunities they've been given to now be able to truly make informed choices regarding their lives and their careers. I would like to now share with you the above mentioned video that we filmed on the campus of the University of Tennessee at Martin. I've also included the links to our other videos we've done with the state of Tennessee in the resource section of the handout with some additional Employment First publications. I do hope you take the time to enjoy each video because they will allow you to hear how change can be a powerful tool in the lives of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And we kind of test drove this earlier, so hopefully it'll play.
That's good, that's good. Feel it every morning. As soon as you walk in, good morning, how you doing? The students love me, they'll say good morning to me. And she'll say hello to you from halfway across the dining hall. Yes, ma'am, I appreciate you. They come to my salad bar. I love your salad. I said thank you. And you come back to my salad bar. Thank you, ma'am. She just takes ownership of her station to make sure that it is right so the students would know what they are getting.
She runs a very tight ship there.
Thank you.
There's a lot of responsibility attached to it, and the items at the salad bar are always fresh.
Like I said, I love to work.
We hire about between 10 and 12 individuals with intellectual disabilities.
Every point of service throughout this organization, there's someone who has a challenge. They work from in the back of the house, from receiving the truck all the way through preparation and beyond. A lot of times when our managers meet with our teams and we discuss things that most employees have a fault in, like maybe clocking in on time, things like that. Typically, the folks with the disabilities are the example because they're the ones that do it right every time.
You know, every year they come back and it's just like any other employee. Every year they get a raise just like any other employee. They get an evaluation like any other employee.
It's really no different. They come to work hard. They put their all into it every day. They never slack. We're doing chicken nuggets for lunch. Chicken nuggets. Mike, when he comes down to his grill, he takes ownership of it. He knows everything to a T, what should be on the grill, what's missing on the grill.
What all sorts of things do you cook other than chicken nuggets?
French fries, quesadillas, grilled cheese, and cheeseburgers. There has been times where we have been a little short-handed, where Michael would tell the person that knew that we have pulled from somewhere else and tell them what to do and how it should be done.
The thing that has surprised me the most is their attitude towards people. I mean, they have a love for life. They come in every day ready to face what's out there with a smile.
They act more comfortable in this environment than what I expect.
These employees come in and they're always in a great mood, and sometimes the students here, they need that. They need that good morning. They need that how are you doing today?
You like being around all the students?
Yes. I made some friends. Wendy, I'll have to say I work with Wendy the most. She's a doll. She's my sweetheart. I clean out the tables and napkin holders and fill up salt and pepper shakers.
The quality of their work is some of the best that we have here because they're so consistent and diligent.
The partnership with St. John's, any issue we ever have, we've got someone right here like Dwayne who comes in, shadow that person or shadow us in how we communicate with that person.
To be honest, I can't picture the cab without it.
From my experience, the folks with disabilities, they want to please, they want to do good with their life, with their career, and we shouldn't shortchange that. We should give them equal opportunity.
You have a lovely night, Dave.
The video you just saw comes from the hard work of the individuals and a long-standing partnership of some 25 years with Sodexo Dining Services. When you're able to deliver on the services you say you can, businesses will keep coming back to you for viable options to meet their employment vacancies. The next story that I'm going to share with you is Codys Story. This is one of my most recent job placements. Cody suffered a traumatic brain injury from a car accident the last half of his senior year of high school. After he recovered from his injuries, he went to the TRC Training Center in Smyrna, Tennessee to study auto detailing. After he completed the program, he returned back to the Martin area looking for work. The vocational rehabilitation counselor in our area reached out to St. John's for assistance with job placement. I agreed to meet Cody after I watched his video. I was sold after hearing Cody talk about what he wanted out of his life and the drive he had to get there. Cody, the VR counselor, and myself met at our office at 10 a.m. on a Monday morning. We discussed what he wanted to do with his employment options, and it was all about cars. Cody loves working on them and being around that type of industry. I took Cody to another long-standing business partner we had worked with for many years. Long story short, Cody was hired by 11:20 a.m. that morning in an auto detailing facility. But wait, that's not all. The story gets even better. A few weeks after beginning his new job, Cody got to walk the graduation line in Smyrna and receive his diploma. The story doesn't quite end there. It gets even a little bit better than that. This past Monday, I was able to bring down a film crew that shot his original video with the state of Tennessee, and we were able to do a follow-up story on Codys' success. This video will focus not only on the remarkable job Cody has done, but also the strong partnership needed between voc rehab providers and employers to make great stories like this a reality. This is Cody a few weeks ago at his new job site, and he's all smiles. And this is the business owners who made his dream of working in and around cars a reality. They're also recipients of Tenco's Business of the Year Award for the top business that strives to make employment a reality for those with intellectual developmental disabilities. This is just another way that St. John's builds strong relationships by spotlighting great businesses every chance we get through either videos, awards, or local advertisements. Now, when you talk about local advertisement and building strong relationships, all you have to do is turn the radio dial to WCMT Thunderbolt Broadcasting. This is our local radio station serving the communities we operate in, and they are a strong supporter of our efforts at multiple levels. Outside of running the advertisements for St. John's, they are also an employer. Danny is in his 70s, and he had retired from the working world a few years back. Well, like most who enter into retirement, he became bored pretty quickly and wanted something to do on a part-time basis. So we were able to place Danny at the radio station. He enjoys being around people and going to local events, such as the fair you see here in this slide. Now, going back to the advertisement side of it for a moment, one thing that we do with our ads is to bring in our local volunteer sites or other businesses who employ individuals and showcase that relationship. We're going to run the ads regardless, but it sends a much powerful message to the community when they hear other local entities come on air with us and speak to the benefits of working with or hiring an individual with an intellectual and developmental disability. WCMT is also a voice and a champion for what we are trying to do in and for the community. About 5 years ago, Mr. Paul Tinkle, pictured here, and his staff dedicated to host a radiothon in our honor. He donated 4 hours of his airtime from the radio station to bring in individuals, parents, businesses, and St. John's staff on air to talk about the services we had to offer and the success stories we had to tell. In his 4-hour window, Mr. Tinkle raises anywhere from $12,000 to nearly $20,000 for our agency. People and businesses in the community call in and make pledges in honor of the individuals, our staff, and our cause as a strong showing of support to the betterment of those we serve. It's a fun 4 hours, full of laughs and great stories. This picture shows Patsy and Paul after she made him his favorite cookies and brought them to the event as a surprise. Needless to say, Paul did not bother to share his cookies with any of the rest of us. Another strong partnership we've developed is with Tennessee Tractor. The gentleman you see here in this picture approached me one day outside and said, "I want a job." And I said, "All right, Danny, what do you want to do?" "I want to work at John Deere." You see, Danny grew up in and around farming communities all of his life. He does not go a day without wearing something that has John Deere on it. So I said, okay, we'll look into that, but, what if they're not hiring? What about Massey Ferguson, Kubota, or some of the other farm implement companies in the area? The answer was a big old no. He simply loves John Deere, and in his mind, that's all that is out there. So I approached Tennessee Tractor and spoke with the district manager about employment programs that we had to offer and told him that I had the perfect employee for him. We set up an interview with the district manager and Danny did great. Danny has now been successfully working for Tennessee Tractor since 2012. To show what kind of impact services can have on the local community and businesses, Tennessee Tractor has hired an individual with a disability in all the stores they operate out of in our service area. This happened all from the hard work of this young man and his unwavering passion to be around John Deere tractors. Yet another strong partnership we've established is with our own city officials. We approached our local leadership with the potential of employment opportunities, and it's turned out to be a powerful relationship. Charlie's Story, which you'll find in the resource section of your handouts, was the first employment video we did with the state of Tennessee. Charlie worked side by side with our city mayor and other officials. When he first started, we were providing the transportation services for him. Now either the mayor or supervisor, shown here in this picture, picks him up every day for work. Charlie's invited to the mayor's luncheon every year to rub elbows with our community's local leaders and is a part of all of the city of Martin's local events. From a marketing perspective, what better tool to have than the local leadership backing the programs? Our mayor and his team gladly work with us when we're providing tours and technical assistance to other states or providers wanting to get firsthand glimpse at our operations. It truly has been a great partnership for all involved. And finally, the last story I will share with you is about a topic that always seems to come up regarding the levels of behaviors and needs of the individuals being served. Every individual can work if that is what they truly want to do. The only barrier to that exists in our own minds. And people will argue that statement with me all day long, and that's perfectly fine because everyone is entitled to their opinion. But my opinion is everybody can work. But for me, with the right support and the right job placement, you might be surprised at what that person can achieve. For example, this young lady that I placed is, wheelchair dependent due to spastic quadriplegia. She's in need of total physical assistance in transfer and functional mobility. She has to use an accent AAC communication device for communication and has extremely limited range of motion in one hand, the only hand that she can actually do work. This young lady works at a local dentist office. She started out as a greeter. We worked with her SLP to assist with programming her communication device to greet customers as they came and went from the establishment. But on slow days, she may not be really earning her paycheck. So we sought out more job tasks that she could do. With hand-over-hand assistance, she began cleaning some of the dentist equipment used in routine procedures, like disinfecting the mouth trays used to make molds of teeth, etc. She also cleaned the toys in the lobby after the little kids coming in and played with them to ensure everything was disinfected and safe. In the end, we were able to carve out enough jobs to keep her busy the duration of her shift. Now, I know this job means something to this young lady way beyond what gets typed on her communication device simply by the little squeals and smiles I see come over her face when she's been told she's done a good job or when she gets her paycheck. She is truly proud of the opportunities and the accomplishments she has made. As we wind down the presentation, I'd like to now share with you the end results of our transformation process as it correlates to our 31-year-old sheltered workshop facility that permanently ended operations on July 1st, 2016. We started out with 67 individuals enrolled at the start of our conversion process. 4 individuals retired from services altogether between 2012 and 2016. 5 elected to change providers to remain in sheltered facilities. 1 moved to another St. John's program to be closer to his family. It too was a program without loss. 4 individuals unfortunately passed away over our transformation period. 11 expressed their choice of not wanting to work in elected community participation services instead. 35 from the workshop went to work. 3 are currently seeking work. 1 of those individuals has pending placement, and 4 are on the fence about work altogether as we continue to push exploration and discovery. If you were to look at this from a percentage breakdown, this would be where we stood at the closure of our sheltered workshop program. 16% of those individuals do not want to work due to retirement age or individual choice. 6% retired from services due to age, health, or family needs. 8% selected a provider who still offered sheltered workshop. 1% moved to be closer to their family. 6% passed away. 52% were employed. 5% are seeking work, and 6% are undecided. Now, if you were to factor in those individuals who expressed in their individual specific plan that they did not want to work due to being of retirement age or choice, our percentage numbers of those who sought work increases to 63%. Factor in those that left services for uncontrollable reasons and or choice, and we stand at 83% for those individuals who wanted to work in competitive or customized employment that remained with the agency throughout the transformation journey. Whoops, let me back that up. I've had the pleasure of working directly with individuals we serve at our Martin location for over 22 years. One thing that I've learned through this transformation process is that work is more than just about making a living, as important as that is. Work is fundamental to human dignity, to our sense of self-worth as individuals. And for those individuals that took the journey with us, they now have achieved that aspect in their lives. I would like to share with you now what the transformation journey has meant in those individuals' own words. This video is called Out of the Workshop.
My name is Eddie Allen. I have worked in this field for 21 years.
we've been hearing about
Dwayne, this is Devin. I think we lost the audio on that one.
Okay, so y'all not hearing anything on that one? Can you see the video?
A lot of individuals
Yeah, we can see it, but we can't hear anything.
would be able to
Okay.
volunteer.
Well, I'll move on then from that. The video is in the handout section, and I do encourage everybody to kind of listen to that video. You get to hear the individual speak firsthand to the conversion process, and it's pretty powerful in regards to that. So I'll move on with the presentation. So as we stated earlier, we completed our transformation process initially in 2016, but you really never stop transforming. If you do, you're not going to be in business very long. So what has St. John's Community Services been up to since we shut the doors to our workshop in 2016? We've been looking at how to better utilize current technology to enable the individuals we serve to have more freedom and independence. The Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities held its inaugural Enabling Technology Summit last year. The department is exploring how technology solutions can assist persons supported in programs to live more independently. At the time of this summit, approximately 200 DID providers, staff, advocates, and other stakeholders attended the summit to learn about enabling technology, such as telecaregiving, remote sensors, mobile applications, to promote person-centered supports and foster independence. DID has since spent several months researching available technologies and how they are being used in intellectual developmental programs across the country. The department plans to start testing some of these technologies in its waiver program in early 2018. As a result of the state's initiative here, St. John's Community Services was selected to be one of only 3 providers in the state of Tennessee to roll out the Enabling Technology Initiative. So that's something that we're very proud of and something that we have started since we've moved out of segregated settings. Next, short-term cash sale, long-term investments. A lot of the properties that we had from the conversion process, we're trying to figure out what to do with them. You could look at something from a short-term basis. This is a picture of one of our group homes that we transitioned out of and now provide services in smaller supported living homes. If you're needing some short-term gains, you could look at selling off properties and use that money to further develop your programs or pay down your debt. But keep in mind that once you do that, that asset is gone. It's no more than a short-term fix, a Band-Aid, if you will. And that's fine if that's what you need to do. And we did just that with one of our homes in particular. We sold that, took that money early on, and put it back in the programs for us to use. Or you could look at how to repurpose that property to further expand your services. Maybe move into a line of operations you previously had not thought about. This is a picture of another one of our properties that we're kind of looking at how to, repurpose that property for the community's benefit. We're currently looking at using our properties to possibly assist abused women with children, maybe to serve medical fragile individuals in intermediate care facilities, or configure the homes to assist the homeless or those recovering from addiction or incarceration. The sky's wide open in regards to that. You just kind of got to be a little creative and really test the waters to what your community is needing outside of the DD field. Or perhaps even taking that larger empty workshop building and turning it into a training facility for all people in the community to learn specific skill sets that can be used to bolster the economy by having skilled workers ready to go to work at area manufacturing operations. This is our workshop that we shut down in July of 2016. It's been set and vacant. How can we figure out a way to repurpose that? Yeah, we could sell it off and we could take that money and put it back into operations, but that's just a short-term fix. We're looking now at maybe creating some really long-term advantages by taking these properties, repurposing them into something, a training facility for, electrical work, plumbing work, some of the area factories to be very specific in the skill set, bringing in teachers and trainers to really showcase not only individuals with disabilities, but the community as well that are looking, to learn that special skill set, trying to figure out how to be a better partner to the community in those regards. However you choose to utilize your assets, do so in a manner that brings the biggest impact to all people, because in the end, that's what we're here to do. My contact information is listed here. If anybody ever wants to reach out to me, and talk about services, good, bad, and different, here's my number. You got my email address, the whole 9 yards. You also have here a listing of several of the Employment First vignettes that I mentioned that we did with the state of Tennessee over the course of the past few years. Codys Story that we filmed this past Monday will be coming out in the next few weeks. So if you want to look that up, please do so. It'll be a great follow-up story. If you can't find the link, email me. I'll be more than happy to send it to you. But this first video is the out of the workshop video that we tried to play a while ago that did not play. I definitely encourage you to take a look at that one. You saw the employment on the campus of UTM. You hear Why Work Matters. That's a video that was done across the state of Tennessee that features some of our individuals. Charlie's story focuses on our work with our city mayor and the story that I referenced earlier in that. And More Than a Job kind of talks about the volunteer aspects of things that are out there and available in the community. So, they're really short videos, 3-4 minute long videos. Some are even shorter than that. But I really encourage you to, take time and watch those, because you really get to hear the individuals speak to the services that they're receiving in those regards. I provided you with Codys Story, the first story that was broke on him. It's really a good piece. You also have some of the expected employment reports that the Employment First Task Force has given to Governor Haslam directly that talks about ways to break down barriers facing individuals in employment in the state of Tennessee. Some other blog postings that we've done here, as well as some of the magazine articles that we've written over our transformation process. And you also get some of the transformation guides through ODEP, Tennessee Works Provider Transformation Guide, and also the Simon Sinek video that I referenced, How Great Leaders Inspire Action. That's really good to help you kind of kickstart your staff and maybe even your management in regards to making your transformation a reality. So with that, I'll wrap it up, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today, to share the story of St. John's Martin, and I'll open it up for any questions that anybody might have.
Thanks, Dwayne. That was really excellent. Before we jump into questions, let me let people know what I'll do after, probably in the next few days. Might be early next week by the time I find time to do it. But I will send out your slide deck and that list of resources at the end to everybody, along with an attendance certificate, if anybody happens to need that, and then the evaluation survey. I'll send all that out over the next few days here, so everybody will have those resources.
Great.
So there's a couple of questions that actually came in at the end of Tom's webinar last month. So that maybe we could start with those. I don't see any yet in the question box. So maybe while people are thinking and have time to type those in, you can talk about these couple of questions that were kind of left over. And I think you did touch on them, but maybe expand them a little bit. Earlier, you mentioned that the philosophy is every individual should be able to work. The question that came in was, what about those that have more significant needs, more significant medical needs, supports needed, or behavioral, whatever the additional needs might be, but how do you deal with those individuals and support them, and is it really every individual?
Well, in that question, all the different conferences I attend or webinars I do, that question always surfaces, and, I guess in my mind, it's state of mind. We were kind of, built in regards to St. John's philosophy and mentality was that every individual can work, has the potential to work. It's our role to go out and really try to do our due diligence and find that one person, one job fit that works. Yes, you can have individuals that have extreme behaviors working. We did that early on with St. John's, where you have an individual that might have two staff, working side by side with the individual. But if you find something that an individual truly enjoys doing, and you can observe that individual in their normal settings, and a lot of times you can start to pick up on some of that. But if you truly find something that an individual really enjoys, then you'll start to see some of those behaviors diminish. We've seen that in our own efforts when putting people to work. Individuals that are aggressive, aren't so much aggressive when they're actually engaged in doing something productive. Maybe part of the reason they're aggressive is because they're bored and not happy with what they're currently doing. So you really got to push the envelope in regards to that. And, and again, that's a conversation that people have all the time with me on that. And, it's kind of where you draw your line in the sand in regards to that. But I truly believe that, if you can find something that anybody can be productive at, just like the young girl that I referenced, this young girl has to be repositioned every 2 hours. She's totally dependent on staff. She has very limited motion in one hand and one hand only. But, she wanted to work. She expressed to her ISC, I want a job. I want to work. Before I ever placed her at work on her communication device, she kept hitting repeatedly, I want a job. I want to make money. I want a job. I want to make money. That was ever before it was, hi, my name is, or anything else. I had to reassure this young lady that I understand what you want, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I meet your needs. But, each individual is unique. Each individual is different. We respect the fact that every individual may not want to work, but, we're at least going to give every individual that opportunity to choose work if that's what they truly want to do. And then from there, it falls on us as job developers, as providers, to put forth the best services that we possibly can for each and every individual that we're working with.
Thanks. And I think we've heard that same scenario, multiple times. And everybody, like you said, that pushes the envelope finds that success.
I mean, it's easy, and I'm not making any disparaging comments here. I mean, it's very easy to place the easy people to place. I mean, but it's a little bit more difficult when, you get door after door after door shut in your face because this person needs this specific environment or these specific conditions to be successful. But think about what happens when you actually get to walk through that threshold of that door that is willing to take that opportunity and that chance on that individual, and think about what the benefits come to that individual as a result of it. So, leave no rock unturned, flip over every stone you can, kick down every door that you have to. But, if you're passionate about employment, you'll figure out a way to make it happen.
Good, thanks. We have got a couple of questions coming in, so let me jump into those, make sure we get those answered here. How long do you have a staff member on site with each person?
We provide supports as long as supports are needed for an individual to be successful. Now, ultimately, in the employment arena, you want to fade and get out as fast as you possibly can. However, if an individual does need ongoing supports to be successful, the rate structure as it stands in Tennessee allows that to happen, and we want that for each individual there. And if it's something that we have to look at developing natural supports from co-workers or others to assist in that manner, we're going to do that. But our mentality is that we're going to stay on with that individual and support that individual and that business as long as it takes for them to be successful. Not every individual can be an individual placement, but that still doesn't mean that those individuals that need that verbal prompting, that hand-on-hand, that one-on-one work cannot be successful and enjoy a long working career in the community.
Okay, thanks. This next question, I'll bring in the second question from last time. The question that got typed in today was, how do you involve the family? But along with that from last time was more specifically in terms of transportation. And you gave some different transportation options that you might pursue. But the question from last time was, what responsibility do you place on the family, and how much of it is things that you yourself as an organization do?
Well, as an organization, if we've got an individual that wants to work, we're going to make sure that individual gets to and from work. I mean, we have our job coaches, they run flex schedules where, if they need to transport an individual, employment's 24/7. So if we've got an individual working odd hours outside of our normal wheelhouse, we're going to figure out a way to make that accommodation happen. And that comes down to me even doing that as well. I mean, the end result is getting the individuals placed and get the individuals successful. We do sit down at the table and have conversations with the families to try to figure out if there's natural supports already established within the family system that could aid in some of that. We also work, like I say, with Northwest Tennessee Transportation. They run routes all over the counties that we operate in, on weekends, etc. So we try to figure out all available options that are available to us and maximize that. And when all else fails and it's left to that individual being successful, getting to and from work, if that's what it comes down to, then, you know, we're running those routes, getting that individual to and from work, whatever time of day or night it is.
And what about then the rest of the story beyond transportation? How are the family involved there?
We try to bring the family along and make sure, you know, a lot of times when we start employment opportunities, the family's all on board with that until it starts to really affect their benefits. A lot of families in our rural areas, you know, they depend on the SSI, SSDI checks that are coming in to not only provide for that individual, but also to provide for the family hierarchy as a whole. A lot of times when we start to put individuals in employment, the families may not realize that it's going to have some effects to the benefits that they're currently drawing. When they start to see their checks start to reduce, you know, they really start to question, you know, the employment arena and really, you know, try to pull back from that, because a lot of times they have a misconception of how the benefits packages work. But what we try to do is bring in, you know, from the very start of the conversation process with families, what this is going to look like. You know, when we started the transformation process, you know, we had families that had been in segregated settings for 41 years. You know, and now all of a sudden, here you are talking about, oh, we're going to go out in the community and we're going to do X, Y, Z, and now we're going to go to work and we're going to do this and that. Families didn't understand what that looked like or what that meant. So you really have to, going back to that communication piece, you really have to sit down and have open and honest communication from every aspect, what's going to be good, what's going to be bad, what concerns might be, and really work through that with the family to make sure they have a firm grasp of what their individual is going to do. And you may even bring that individual and that family in and show them what's occurring in the community with other individuals and let them get a sense of understanding from that. You know, that's why the videos are always good. Sometimes you can see a video and it puts things in perspective other than hearing somebody talk about it. But we try to involve the staff, the individuals, the family from the get-go of what we're trying to accomplish for that individual. And if there's any questions that arise along the way, we're going to answer that. But we really want that education and that involvement to be present from day one of working with those individuals.
Good, thanks. The next question is looking more at your numbers. Have you seen any change from before you started the transformation efforts to now in terms of new individuals coming into your program?
We're increasing. Our numbers are steadily climbing. Our employment numbers are climbing. We're getting, you know, in this day and age, families want more for their individual than a segregated setting. Families expect individuals to come out of high school and go to work. Families want that for their individuals, and rightly so. So we're seeing, yes, we're seeing an increase in the services that we have to offer individuals. We have people, you know, we're getting referrals weekly of services for individuals, whether that be through the new managed care operations that we're, you know, involved in now in Tennessee, or whether it's through voc rehab referrals. Our referral list this past month and a half has, you know, I probably started working with 8 or 10 more individuals within this past month and a half than I was, you know, the previous month. So yes, services that we're offering, you know, and it's not to say that that's what everybody wants. Like I said, we had some individuals and their families, segregated settings was what they wanted. They didn't care that if I told them the settings rule's coming, you know, all people in the state of Tennessee, all providers in the state of Tennessee are going to eventually get to this because it's going to be mandated by the settings rule. We're just ahead of the game as everybody else. They didn't care. If they could get 3 or 4 more years of segregated services, that's what they wanted because it gave them that sense of safety. You know, I've been doing this all this time in a segregated setting. My individual's safe. I know where they're at. You know, I don't want them out in the community, you know, for people to, you know, to make fun of them or them to, you know, be in danger or whatever. But, the individuals are a lot more safer out in the community, doing things that they're enjoying doing and liking than they are, closed off in a segregated setting somewhere. Our sheltered workshop facility, when I talk about breaking down the cultural of an organization and really integrating people, our sheltered workshop had no windows. You came into a big metal building, you worked inside that big metal building for 6 hours, and you never did see the light of day. Now individuals are out in the community, they're working side by side with other community members that they go to church with, that they might have went to school with, that they see out in the community, and they're actually involved in a big part of our workforce. And to me, that's a great thing.
Good. One other question we got here, actually, other than employment, what generally do individuals do in terms of community participation services? There's only so many places to volunteer, and recreational activities are maybe limited.
Yes, to some degree to that, but you'd also be surprised. We kind of thought that as well when we started this. Before we ever started rolling out our community participation programs, I spent a lot of time, probably about a month and a half, actually out in the community, talking to community leaders, talking to churches, talking to chambers, talking to basically anybody that wanted to, take the time to talk to me about opportunities out there, and even talking to the families about what might be available that we may not know about. For us, if you are a nonprofit, we can volunteer at your establishment. We have over 31 different volunteer sites set up from multiple aspects of different things. We do a lot of the Real Foot Rule Ministry thrift stores. We do a lot of the Meals on Wheels aspects, no-kill animal shelters, clinics that offer medical services, dental services to individuals that have no insurance, food pantries, working with churches, or the city to, make the area, the beautification projects, if you will. Anything that has a nonprofit tag to it. We volunteer with Christian schools to go in and work from kindergarten on up to 4th grade, in those aspects of it. It's not just the big things like Salvation Army and some of the big name tickets that are always out there. And trust me, I know that because I'm sitting here in an area that doesn't have those things. But, when you start to really get into your church associations, your community leaders, and you really start talking, you start, stumbling across more and more opportunities as you go, and that helps. And it's also in rural areas, it seems like, you would have more outreach efforts because of the unemployment, poverty rates in some of those areas. Now, that's not to say every county will have just, a luxury of that, but for the most part, if you're in those areas, there's things there. It may be a little subdued, and you may not know about it, or it may not be talked about all the time, but you can really find some pretty good opportunities for the individuals. We stay productive, whether that might be going to an assisted living program for elderly and doing activities, or going to a nursing home and volunteering. You can kind of get creative in your ideas as long as it's providing a productive outing and a productive day for the individuals. That's kind of what we look for.
Good, thanks. That looks like all the questions we have, and we're about up on our time anyway. So thank you very much. That was some really great information and great presentation. I wanted to remind everybody that our next webinar will be June 26th, I'm sorry. And Corey Smith will be the presenter, and he'll be doing part 3 of our best practices in the rural areas. So I look forward to that. And again, I will send out the slide deck with the resources Dwayne mentioned, and the attendance certificate if that's something you might need, and the evaluation survey. If you can please fill that out and get that back to me, we'd certainly appreciate your comments. So with that, I want to thank you all for your time, and we will look forward to talking to you next time. Thanks.
Thank you very much.